The microphone squealed as Nia pointed at Vanessa and said, "She threatened my mom." For one impossible second, the ballroom stopped breathing. Crystal chandeliers burned above the charity stage, turning every shocked face into something sharp and exposed. Vanessa Wren stood beside Ethan Halbrook in a silver gown, one hand still wrapped around the stem of a champagne flute. Across the room, cameras that had been waiting for a glamorous engagement speech swung toward a 10-year-old girl in scuffed black flats and a navy dress bought for one night she clearly had not wanted to attend. Nia's finger never wavered. "She told my mom not to come," Nia said, louder this time. "She said if my mom talked to Ethan, we'd be sorry." A murmur broke loose through the local press pool and rolled into the Halbrook family's inner circle like a crack under glass. Ethan did not move at first. His jaw tightened, but his eyes were not on Nia. They were on Alana Brooks, standing near the service entrance with the rigid stillness of someone who had spent too many years surviving by becoming invisible. Alana looked as if she wanted the floor to open beneath her. Vanessa recovered first. She lowered her glass with careful elegance, the kind that had saved her in boardrooms and interviews and rooms full of old money that measured women before they greeted them. When she smiled, it was small and controlled. "That's not true," she said. "She's a child. She's confused." Nia took one step closer to the stage. "I'm not confused." The gala staff froze with trays in their hands. One server nearly dropped a row of sparkling water flutes. The engagement fundraiser backdrop behind Ethan and Vanessa, white roses, gold script, the Halbrook Foundation seal, suddenly looked less like a celebration and more like a witness. Ethan finally stepped away from the podium. That movement changed the room. Vanessa reached for his wrist, but he pulled free without looking at her. He came down the short stage stairs and crossed the marble floor toward Nia, ignoring the calls from two of his family allies who wanted security to handle it quietly. Every camera followed him. Every phone was up now. When he stopped in front of Nia, he lowered himself to one knee. It was not tenderness that stunned the room. It was the fact that he was listening. "Tell me exactly what happened," Ethan said. Vanessa's face lost color. Alana rushed forward at last, panic breaking through her silence. "Nia, no. We're leaving." But Nia turned to her mother before Ethan could answer. "You said truth matters if nobody else will say it." The words landed harder than the accusation. Alana's mouth parted, then closed again. Shame and fear moved across her face in quick succession. Ethan looked up at her then, and something unsettled flickered in his expression. He knew that look. He had seen it in people brought into Halbrook rooms to be dismissed before they finished a sentence. Vanessa descended from the stage with perfect posture and a tightening voice. "Ethan, this is absurd. We don't know these people. Someone clearly sent them here to cause a scene. That should have ended it. In rooms like this, it usually did." Instead, Ethan stood and turned toward the gala staff near the entrance. "Lock the doors for 5 minutes." Silence hit again, heavier this time. One of the event managers hesitated. "Ethan, the guests." 5 minutes, Ethan repeated. The manager nodded and signaled the staff. Vanessa stared at him as if she no longer recognized the man beside her. This fundraiser was supposed to seal their image before the press, before donors, before his family's board allies. Instead, he had just trapped the scandal inside the room long enough for the truth to choose a side. Alana grabbed Nia's hand. "No, we should go." Ethan faced her fully. "If someone threatened you in my name or because of me, you don't leave." It was the first time anyone in that room had offered her protection without also asking for her silence. Vanessa let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Vanessa let out a short, disbelieving laugh. The sound cut through the suite like glass dragged across marble. Under the warm chandelier light, every face in the room shifted toward her, and for the first time that night, charm stopped working. "That is insane," Vanessa Wren said, smoothing the front of her silver gown as if the wrinkle in the fabric mattered more than the child standing a few feet away. A 10-year-old says one dramatic sentence, and suddenly we're holding a trial in a private lounge. Nia Brooks did not move behind Alana Brooks. Her small hand stayed locked around her mother's fingers, but her chin lifted. "You told my mom nobody would believe her because rich people protect each other." Vanessa's smile faltered for half a second. That half second was enough. Ethan Halbrook turned to the 8 charity gala staff members gathered near the service doors. "No one leaves. Not staff, not media, not family. I want the hallway camera feed from the last 30 minutes and the service corridor feed outside this suite. A murmur moved through the room at once. This was no longer a scene to be laughed off. It had become procedure. One of the 5 local press pool reporters raised a phone instinctively. Ethan saw it. Phone's down. If one image leaks before I know what happened, your outlet loses access to every Halbrook event from tonight forward. The reporter lowered the phone. Vanessa crossed her arms. So now you're threatening the press because a stranger walked in with a story? No, Ethan said. I'm stopping a performance and starting an inquiry. The difference landed harder than shouting would have. Alana looked from Ethan to the door, still measuring escape like it was safer than trust. We didn't come here for this, she said quietly. We came because I was told there would be legal counsel present tonight. I was told someone from the foundation wanted to discuss a sealed donation record. That changed the room. The 6 members of the Halbrook family inner circle, who had spent the last minute pretending to be neutral, became still in a new way. A sealed record did not sound like gossip. It sounded like paper. It sounded like risk. Vanessa stepped forward too quickly. You're lying. Alana reached into her handbag with a trembling hand. Every eye followed the motion. She pulled out a cream envelope, bent slightly at one corner, with the gala's gold insignia stamped on the flap. I was sent this 3 days ago, Alana said. No return name. Just a time, this event address, and one line. Bring the file if you still want the truth buried in the right grave. Silence swallowed the room whole. Nia looked up at her mother, confused by the words, but not by the fear inside them. Ethan held out his hand. May I? Alana hesitated, then gave him the envelope. Inside was a typed card and a valet ticket. Ethan read the line once, then again, slower. His jaw tightened. The valet ticket had a number written in blue ink and a note on the back, storage box under Brooks. Vanessa's color drained so suddenly it looked like someone had dimmed the lights around her face. Ethan saw it. Why does that mean something to you? He asked. It doesn't, Vanessa said too fast. You're imagining things. But the damage had already been done. This was no longer a child's accusation against a powerful woman. This was a threatened witness arriving with physical evidence and a message tied to her name. Alana took a breath that sounded painful. 2 weeks ago, someone came to my apartment after dark. They knew where Nia slept. They knew what school route I walk her on Tuesdays. They told me if I brought up the old donation records again, my daughter would be the one who paid for my memory. Nia's fingers tightened around her mother's hand. The cost in the room changed instantly. Not reputation. Not embarrassment. Safety. Ethan turned to the security lead from the gala staff. Get a car to the employee entrance. Quietly. The service corridor behind the ballroom smelled like coffee grounds, melted ice, and expensive flowers beginning to wilt under the midnight air. One by one, the sounds of the gala faded behind the heavy fire door as the security lead guided Alana Brooks and Nia Brooks toward the employee entrance exactly as ordered. No cameras. No guests. No polished smiles pretending nothing had happened. From the end of the corridor, Ethan Halbrook watched without stepping too close. Publicly, he had every reason to see the scene as a humiliating disruption to his engagement night. Privately, the details in Alana's statement had landed with the force of something uglier. The threat had not been theatrical. It had been specific. Apartment. School route. Old donation records. Vanessa Wren had remained upstairs under the warm white lights of the fundraiser, surrounded by the Halbrook family inner circle and the local press pool, all of them waiting for an explanation polished enough to survive the night. But Ethan did not go back to them. Instead, he turned away from the ballroom and followed a different trail. The employee records office sat 2 floors below the event hall, tucked beside loading access and storage rooms the guests never saw. A member of the charity gala staff hesitated when Ethan asked for archived vendor and temporary personnel files connected to the foundation events sponsored by Vanessa's family circle over the past decade. The hesitation lasted only a second. His expression ended it. What came out first looked harmless: sign-in sheets, payment logs, volunteer rosters, donor reception schedules. Then one name surfaced in a personnel packet from 7 years earlier. Alana Brooks. Not as a guest. Not as a server. Not as a public-facing employee. Private child support aide. The title was small, buried in an internal staffing list for a closed donor retreat hosted at a Wren property outside the city. Her role had been limited, confidential, and temporary. assigned to assist with a minor family member during private fundraising events and overnight accommodations. The contract ended abruptly after only 11 days. Under reason for departure, the file offered no explanation. Just two typed words: immediate separation. The discovery changed the shape of the night. Until then, Nia's accusation had sounded like a child breaking open a room with a truth too sharp for adults to control. Now there was a line leading backward, and Vanessa stood somewhere on it. Ethan requested the attached clearance notes. Another gala staff member brought a sealed archive envelope that had apparently never been moved into the main digital system. Inside was a visitor access log, two unsigned incident summaries, and a missing final page torn from a handwritten complaint file. The first incident summary mentioned an emotional confrontation near the East Garden staircase between Alana Brooks and a female member of the host family circle. No names, no disciplinary outcome. The second summary was stranger. It stated that Alana had been escorted off the property before dawn and that her temporary housing arrangement had been terminated the same morning. Security had been instructed not to discuss the matter with outside staff. He read both pages twice. This was no longer about a child saying something impossible at the wrong moment. This was about someone being erased from a system built to protect wealthy names. Upstairs, his phone vibrated with messages from Vanessa Wren. "Where are you? The press is asking questions. Come back now." He silenced it. A quieter answer waited in the last item from the envelope, a transportation reimbursement request never processed. The pickup address listed on the form matched an old staff residence on the Wren estate. The destination was a bus terminal nearly 40 miles away. Attached to it was a handwritten note in block letters from an administrator: "Do not reactivate. Family directive. Family directive." Ethan stood very still, the papers cold in his hands despite the stale warmth of the records room. He had spent years learning how powerful families buried inconvenience through contracts, silence, and replacement narratives. What unsettled him was not that it had happened. The fluorescent hum in the records room still clung to Ethan's skin when he stepped back into the hotel's private service corridor, the folder tucked under his arm like contraband. The gala downstairs had only grown louder. Glasses chimed. A string quartet drifted through the walls in soft, expensive waves. Everything in the building was polished to suggest certainty, yet the paper in his hand had turned certainty into something brittle. At the far end of the corridor, Vanessa was waiting. She did not ask what he had found. Her gaze dropped to the folder, then rose to his face with a composure so practiced it felt rehearsed. The diamond at her finger caught the recessed light and flashed once, sharp as a warning. "There you are," she said quietly. "Your aunt has been covering for you with the press pool for 15 minutes. Ethan studied her. Why did a child's medical file carry a family directive? A stillness passed over Vanessa's expression, brief but real. Then it disappeared beneath a small exhale and a sympathetic tilt of her head, as if he were the one being unreasonable. "This is exactly how people trap men like you," Vanessa said. "A dramatic child. A frightened mother. Old paperwork no one can verify in context. They show up where cameras are already pointed and wait for guilt to do the rest." That was not denial. It was strategy. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You are about to inherit a company, a foundation, and a public life built over generations. One accusation at the wrong event becomes a headline by midnight. By morning, it becomes leverage." Ethan said nothing. Vanessa took his silence for space and moved into it. "You need to see this for what it is. Money, access, recognition. If you start treating every stranger with a story like family, people will keep manufacturing stories." The words landed cleanly, but something inside them felt too prepared, too polished. Ethan had spent years around corporate crisis teams and boardroom ambushes. He knew the language used when someone wanted a person reduced to risk. Downstairs, one of the gala staff opened the service door to ask whether Ethan was needed at the donor table. Vanessa answered before he could, smiling without warmth. 5 minutes. When the door closed again, her voice sharpened. "Do not let them corner you alone," she said. "Not the girl. Not the mother. If they ask for a private conversation, refuse it. If they mention legal action, direct them through counsel. And if they cry, remember that crying is not proof." The sentence hung in the corridor longer than it should have. Ethan looked at her carefully. "You've thought this through. I've thought through what happens when opportunists smell weakness. He should have gone back to the ballroom. Instead, he walked past her and headed toward the side lounge overlooking the river, the one reserved for board members and family allies. Through the half-open doors, he saw Alana Brooks standing near the windows, not posing, not scanning for attention. She was trying to keep Nia Brooks occupied with a folded dessert napkin she had turned into a paper bird. Nia whispered something. Alana flinched so hard the child noticed. It was not theatrical fear. It was the body remembering danger before the mind could hide it. Ethan stopped just outside the room as two members of the Halbrook family inner circle crossed behind him in low conversation. If this becomes a story, settle it fast. Vanessa said the mother already knows how to push. The words were meant to be private, but they confirmed what he had begun to suspect. Vanessa had not simply reacted. She had started shaping the room. Inside the lounge, Nia looked up and saw Ethan. She did not run to him. She did not plead. She only reached for her mother's hand. Alana turned, and for a moment her face showed naked alarm. Not ambition, not calculation. Alarm. Her free hand moved instinctively to her purse, as if checking for something still inside it. Ethan stepped forward. The air inside the lounge tightened before anyone spoke. Crystal sconces cast a pale gold glow across the velvet chairs, but the warmth stopped at the walls. Ethan crossed the room slowly, not with the authority he used in boardrooms, but with the caution of someone who understood that one wrong move could make a frightened child retreat. Nia stayed close to Alana, her fingers wrapped around her mother's hand so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Alana's other hand remained near her purse. That small motion had caught Ethan's eye the second he entered. Vanessa had controlled faces, whispers, and distance all evening. But Alana was guarding an object. Outside the half-open lounge doors, the gala's music still floated in, too elegant for the fracture now running through the night. The 6 members of the Halbrook family inner circle had begun gathering in the hallway, drawn by tension the way people were drawn to smoke. 2 of the charity gala staff lingered near the door, pretending to adjust a floral arrangement while listening. Beyond them, shadows from the local press pool shifted, alert and hungry. Ethan stopped 3 feet away. What's in the purse? Alana's chin lifted. Fear still sat in her eyes, but something steadier held underneath it. Something I kept because I knew one day she might say I was lying. Vanessa had followed him to the lounge entrance. This is absurd, she said sharply. You're letting a scene made by a child and a desperate woman derail your own engagement party. Nia flinched at the word desperate. Ethan noticed. Alana noticed too. Without taking her eyes off Vanessa, Alana opened the purse and pulled out a phone wrapped in a folded receipt. The screen was cracked near one corner. It looked ordinary, almost disappointingly so. But the room changed anyway. I never gave this to anyone, Alana said. Because I knew once it came out, I wouldn't be able to take my life back. Vanessa folded her arms. A phone proves nothing. Alana tapped the screen, entered a passcode, and opened an old voicemail archive. Her thumb shook once before she pressed play. Static came first. Then Vanessa's voice, unmistakable even through the tiny speaker. Cool, polished, and stripped of the sweetness she used in public. If you know what's good for your daughter, you'll stop asking where I was that night. Some women should learn that being near powerful families does not make them part of one. Silence hit the room so hard it felt like impact. Nia looked up at Ethan, not triumphantly, only with the exhausted expression of a child who had been forced to carry an adult truth too long. Alana stared straight ahead, as though the only way to survive the moment was to keep herself from looking at anyone's reaction. Vanessa's face changed by a fraction first. Her mouth parted. Her shoulders went still. For the first time that evening, nothing came out immediately. The pause was brief, but brutal. It was the kind of freeze no performance could hide. Then she recovered. That could be edited. It was saved 11 months ago, Alana said. Time-stamped. Backed up. And not just there. That landed harder. Ethan took the phone from Alana only after she nodded. He checked the date, the metadata visible on the screen, the old carrier label, the archived backup notice. Small things. Concrete things. Not enough to prove every part of the larger story yet, but enough to prove one critical fact. Vanessa knew Alana. Vanessa had lied in front of everyone. From the hallway, one of the local press pool stepped closer, lifting a phone before a member of the charity gala staff blocked the angle too late. A murmur moved through the corridor like wind through dry leaves. Ethan turned toward Vanessa. You said tonight you had never seen her before. Vanessa's eyes locked on his. I said what was necessary because this woman has been circling our family for months. No, Alana said, voice low and clear now. I stayed silent for months. The distinction cut cleanly. The corridor outside the ballroom never fully quieted, but the sound changed after that sentence. Gossip had a bright edge. Fear moved lower, closer to the floor. Under the chandelier's spill of gold, Ethan stood still long enough to understand that another public exchange would only feed the wrong hunger. Vanessa had already turned the room into a stage once. If there was truth buried under all this, it would not survive another performance. He left the corridor without warning his family. The Halbrook family inner circle noticed, but none of the six followed him past the service stairwell. Inside the private office suite above the gala floor, the music became a muffled pulse beneath marble and wood. Ethan shut the door, loosened his collar, and pulled up the event expense accounts on his phone before opening the family archive drive from his laptop. It was an ugly place to begin, but money rarely lied as gracefully as people did. Downstairs, Vanessa was likely repairing the room with charm and outrage. Ethan knew that skill well. What he had never done was tested against dates, transfers, and old messages. He started with the simplest claim. Alana had been circling the family for months. If that was true, there would be records tied to security, legal notices, or staff alerts. Instead, he found something stranger. For months earlier, a payment had been made through a reputation management vendor the family office used during sensitive mergers. The amount was too small for a corporate crisis and too discreet for philanthropy. It had been approved under a generic code and routed through a holding account connected to a personal authorization token. Vanessa's token. Ethan stared at the screen, then opened the attached notes. Most had been scrubbed. One line remained because someone had forgotten the system's mirrored backup. Issue contained. Witness agreed to relocate temporarily. Child not to be engaged. The office felt colder. Alana had not been chasing the family. Someone had moved her out of the way. He went deeper, retracing timestamps from the week of the transfer. A car service had been billed to an address across town. A second payment covered 6 weeks at a short-term apartment under a shell contact. Then he found an older chain of messages, preserved only because one assistant had forwarded them to schedule around a charity board meeting. Vanessa had written that an unstable woman was threatening to misread a private incident from the spring fundraiser. The reply from a family fixer asked one question. Does Ethan know? Vanessa's answer had been immediate. No, he cannot, especially before the engagement announcement. The private incident took Ethan another 10 minutes to identify. It had happened at a smaller Halbrook charity luncheon 7 months earlier, before the engagement became official. Security notes mentioned a brief altercation near the underground parking entrance, then vanished mid-log. But a mirrored text from a staff phone survived. A member of the charity gala staff had reported seeing Vanessa corner Alana beside the concrete pillar near the loading ramp, speaking so close that Alana backed into her own car door. The note ended with, "Little girl present. Crying. Heard words, if you care about your mother, keep quiet." Nia had not invented the accusation tonight. She had remembered it. For the first time all evening, Ethan understood why Alana's silence had felt less like strategy and more like damage. This was no longer about humiliation at a gala. It was about a 10-year-old child being taught that truth could endanger the one person she loved most. His phone lit up with 3 missed calls from Vanessa and 2 from the Halbrook family inner circle. He ignored them all and copied every surviving file to an encrypted drive. Then he took screenshots of the deleted log recovery trail, because he knew how quickly powerful people could call missing data an error. A soft knock came at the office door. One of the charity gala staff stood outside, pale and careful, holding a silver tray she clearly no longer cared about. The staff member with the silver tray stepped inside and closed the office door behind her with the careful movement of someone afraid even the hinge might be listening. Her black uniform was still crisp, but her hands shook hard enough to rattle the coffee spoons. "She's here," she whispered. "In the service corridor behind the ballroom. The woman from the loading entrance. She said she wouldn't come in unless Ethan Halbrook came alone." Ethan was already moving before she finished. He slipped the encrypted drive into his inside pocket and took the screenshots on his phone with him. The staff member led him past the bright music and camera flashes leaking through the ballroom walls, then through a gray hallway that smelled like lemon cleaner and wilting roses. The glamour of the gala disappeared in 20 steps. So did his certainty. Alana Brooks stood near a metal utility shelf beneath a buzzing fluorescent light. She wore a dark coat over a simple navy dress, as if she had dressed to testify somewhere, not to plead with strangers. One hand held her purse against her ribs. The other rested on the shoulder of Nia Brooks, who stood close enough to seem brave and frightened at the same time. Nia looked up when Ethan stopped. Her chin lifted first, stubborn on instinct. Then he saw it again, that same tiny flinch from earlier, the one he had dismissed as attitude. It was not defiance. It was a child bracing for what adults became when power felt cornered. Alana drew Nia slightly behind her. That movement hit Ethan harder than any accusation had. She wasn't lying, Alana said. Her voice was low, but it did not tremble. And I did not coach her. Ethan held her gaze. Then tell me why my fiancé's name made your daughter look like that. For a second, Alana said nothing. She studied him as if measuring whether truth would survive in his hands. Beyond the wall, applause swelled from the ballroom, bright and false. Here, the silence felt almost sacred. 3 weeks ago, Alana said, I was hired through a subcontractor to help prepare donor files for the Youth Center Pledge campaign. Temporary work. Quiet work. I kept my head down. She swallowed once. One night, after most people had left, I was in the records room off the foundation office. Vanessa Wren came in with another man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I heard enough. Ethan's jaw tightened. She was angry because something in the old foundation books didn't match what was being presented to donors. There were transfers. Shell vendors. Money moved through programs that barely existed. Alana's fingers pressed harder into Nia's shoulder. She said if that issue surfaced before the engagement became public, it would damage the Halbrook name and ruin everything she had built. The hallway seemed to narrow. Ethan asked, how did this involve you? Alana let out a slow breath. Because she realized someone was in the room. Nia's small hand found her mother's coat sleeve. Alana looked down at her daughter before continuing. Nia had come by that night because the sitter canceled and I couldn't afford to lose the shift. She was waiting behind the file cabinets with her tablet and headphones. She heard Vanessa Wren before I did. Alana's voice thinned at the edge now, not with weakness, but memory. When Vanessa Wren found us, she smiled first. Then she asked my daughter's name. Then she told me that women who confuse private business with public scandal usually regret it. Ethan felt a cold heaviness settle under his ribs. She leaned down. Alana said, and now even Nia looked away, and told Nia that if children repeat grown-up conversations, mothers lose jobs. Homes disappear. People stop helping families like ours. She never touched her. She didn't have to. Nia finally spoke, very softly. She said my mom should learn when to stay grateful. Every false explanation Ethan had built collapsed at once. Not because the words were dramatic, but because they were small, exact, child-sized. Fear had lived in them long enough to become memory. He crouched so he was level with Nia, but he did not reach for her. You remembered that tonight. Nia nodded. Because she used the same voice. Alana's eyes shone, though she refused to let the tears fall. I stayed quiet because I thought silence would keep her safe. Then I saw the announcement, the cameras, the speeches about family and trust. And I understood the threat wasn't over. It was only getting protected. Ethan rose slowly. The music from the ballroom shifted to something celebratory, and it sounded obscene now. He took out his phone. Will you give a statement? On record. Alana did not answer right away. If I do, can you actually protect my daughter from what happens next? That question stayed between them like a blade, because for the first time that night, Ethan understood the problem was no longer whether he believed them. It was whether he was willing to destroy his own future before Vanessa Wren destroyed theirs. Champagne light washed over the private terrace outside the Halbrook Museum wing, turning every crystal flute into a tiny stage. The pre-wedding gathering had been planned as a recovery move after days of quiet rumors, a carefully dressed evening for donors, family allies, and the invited press to see Ethan Halbrook and Vanessa Wren smiling side by side again. Vanessa arrived in silver silk and confidence, reading the room with the ease of someone who still believed beauty, money, and poise could outrun consequence. The 6 members of the Halbrook family inner circle stood near the main display wall, their posture too polished to look natural. The 8 charity gala staff moved with trained discretion between the floral arrangements and the bar. The 5 members of the local press pool had been told the night would include a short statement about wedding philanthropy. Vanessa took that as proof she still had the upper hand. She lifted her glass and touched Ethan's sleeve, inviting cameras closer. "Tonight is about grace," she said warmly, as if the word belonged to her. "About protecting family from ugly misunderstandings." Ethan did not smile for the photographers. That changed the temperature of the terrace faster than the night wind off the river. Vanessa felt it a beat too late. She turned to him with a look sharpened behind her perfect expression, but he had already stepped toward the microphone set near the donor backdrop. Nothing in his face resembled panic now. The hesitation from earlier was gone, replaced by something colder and far more dangerous: decision. He thanked the guests for coming, then thanked the press for staying. It sounded formal, even boring, until he asked the staff member at the audio table to play a file from his phone. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" "A correction," Ethan said. The first recording filled the terrace in brutal clarity. Vanessa's voice, unmistakable and smooth with contempt, spoke from hidden speakers that had carried string music just minutes before. She was telling Alana Brooks to stop pushing for answers, warning that single mothers should know how easy it was to lose everything when powerful people got tired of them. Then came the line that split the room open, a threat aimed at Nia Brooks, framed as a caution but ugly in any language. The silence afterward was not confusion. It was recognition. Vanessa laughed once, too quickly. Anyone can edit audio. She tried to pivot toward the press, but Ethan had built the moment with exits already sealed. He raised one hand toward the terrace doors. Alana Brooks stepped in first, pale but steady, with Nia Brooks beside her in a navy dress and white cardigan, small fingers wrapped around her mother's hand. Behind them came 2 members of the charity gala staff carrying time-stamped event logs and check-in records from the original fundraiser. One of the 5 reporters immediately lowered his camera and opened his notes app instead. Another started recording from a different angle. Vanessa's voice sharpened. "You brought them here?" "No," Ethan said. "They agreed to come after I showed them what I found." He turned to the nearest screen used earlier for donor pledges. A sequence of still images appeared, security footage from the fundraiser hallway, each frame marked with the time. Vanessa entering. Alana cornered near the service corridor. Nia appearing seconds later. A staff route map followed, then the event log showing which workers had been stationed nearby. Ethan called forward one of the 8 charity gala staff, who confirmed hearing raised voices and seeing Nia crying afterward. Then another staff member verified the exact time Vanessa had demanded a private hallway be cleared. Vanessa looked around for support from the 6 members of the Halbrook family inner circle. What she found instead was distance. Not one of them moved toward her. She changed tactics instantly. "Ethan, this is insane. They're using a child to manipulate you." Nia let go of Alana's hand. That single motion drew every eye on the terrace. The girl stepped forward until the edge of the donor rug brushed her shoes. Nia Brooks lifted her chin, and the terrace went so still that even the fountain below seemed to hold its breath. "She came to our apartment 3 nights ago," Nia Brooks said, her small voice carrying farther than any adult expected. "She told my mom if she talked to Ethan Halbrook, bad things would happen. She said nobody would believe us because people like her always win." Vanessa Wren's face lost color so quickly it looked as if the gala lights had washed her out from the inside. "That is a lie," Vanessa Wren snapped. But Nia Brooks did not look at her again. She looked at Ethan Halbrook. "She had this on," Nia Brooks said, reaching into the pocket of her cardigan. She pulled out a slim gold scarf ring, the one Vanessa Wren had worn looped through her silk scarf earlier that week in the press photos from the hospital board luncheon. "It fell by our couch when she stood up." One of the 5 members of the local press pool raised a camera. 2 others already had their phones recording. Across the terrace, the 8 members of the charity gala staff froze in place with trays in hand, caught between service and witness. The 6 members of the Halbrook family inner circle said nothing. Their silence no longer protected Vanessa Wren. It judged her. Vanessa Wren took one sharp step forward. A child found a piece of jewelry, and suddenly that proves a crime? Alana Brooks reached into her purse with trembling fingers, but when she spoke, Her voice came out clear. No, this does. She handed Ethan Halbrook a folded sheet of paper. It was the copy of the signed intake statement Alana Brooks had tried to file 2 days earlier with the Family Foundation's ethics office before it mysteriously vanished. At the bottom was the time stamp from the building lobby and the name of the security guard who had witnessed her distress. Attached to it was a printed screenshot from the apartment building camera across the street. Vanessa Wren's car was parked there at 8:14 p.m. the night Nia Brooks described. Vanessa Wren looked at the page, then at Ethan Halbrook, and for the first time all night, she had no immediate answer. Ethan Halbrook did not raise his voice. That made what followed feel heavier than any shout. "Did you threaten them?" he asked. Vanessa Wren's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "I was protecting us." The words landed like shattered glass. Not protecting the foundation. Not protecting the family. Us. Ethan Halbrook stared at her as if a portrait had begun to crack in front of him, revealing the wall beneath. He realized that every warning he had dismissed, every inconsistency he had excused, had led to this exact moment. A 10-year-old child standing on a donor rug, forced to defend her mother against the woman wearing his ring. He turned to the terrace entrance. "Call security," he said to the nearest member of the gala staff. "And call the foundation's outside counsel. Tonight." Vanessa Wren moved toward him then, abandoning poise for panic. "Ethan, if you do this in public, you destroy both of us." He stepped back before she could touch his sleeve. "No," Ethan Halbrook said. "You made your choice when you tried to frighten a child into silence." The line cut through the terrace with the force of a verdict. One member of the Halbrook family inner circle quietly asked the local press pool to lower their cameras until Nia Brooks and Alana Brooks could leave safely. It was the first useful thing any of them had done all evening. Another removed the velvet ring box from the podium where the engagement announcement had been planned. Ethan Halbrook took the box himself. He opened it once, looked at the diamond under the white gala lights, then closed it with a soft click that somehow sounded final. He set it on the linen-covered donor table beside the pledge cards. "The engagement is over," he said. No one gasped this time. The shock had gone too deep for sound.